President, the war in Ukraine is deadlier today than at any point since the start of the Russian Federation's full-scale invasion in 2022. Each succeeding year of the war has recorded more civilians killed than the previous one. Meanwhile, across the broader region, concerns continue to grow about the risk of further escalation. Appallingly, the last few months have seen some of the most extensive aerial attacks of the war. On 1 June, hours after the last council briefing on Ukraine, convened after a drone struck a city in Romania, the Russian Federation launched one of its biggest missile and drone bombardments across Ukraine, destroying homes, medical facilities, energy infrastructure, and other critical civilian objects. Kyiv was heavily hit. According to local authorities, 7 people were killed and 89 injured. More than 41,000 residents sought shelter overnight in underground metro stations. In Dnipro, missile strikes reportedly hit a residential area, killing 16 people and injuring 42 others. 2 children, aged 2 and 8, were among those killed. Civilian casualties and extensive damage were also reported in Kharkiv, Poltava, Sumy, Zaporizhia, and Chernihiv regions. The massive barrage came just over a week after some 90 Russian long-range missiles and 600 drones rained down on Ukraine, killing and wounding dozens, and, according to UNESCO, damaging more than 30 cultural sites. Diplomatic and United Nations premises were also impacted in that attack. Since our last briefing, deadly incidents have also been reported in areas currently under the control of the Russian Federation. On 3 June, 8 people were reportedly killed when a drone struck a passenger bus in the part of Donetsk region currently under the occupation of the Russian Federation. This was reported by Russian occupying authorities. On 4 June, in occupied Crimea, 3 people were reportedly killed in a drone strike. In a separate incident, 1 person was reportedly killed when a drone struck a commuter train on its way to Kerch, according to Russian occupying authorities. Meanwhile, inside the Russian Federation, a Ukrainian drone attack caused damage in St. Petersburg on 3 June. St. Petersburg was reportedly struck again on 6 June. We continue to see reports of strikes causing civilian casualties and damage to civilian infrastructure in Russian regions bordering Ukraine. Mr. President, the United Nations is not in a position to verify these reports. But what is evident to all, though, is that the conflict is intensifying. Ukraine continues to improve its ability to hurt Russia's logistics efforts, while Russian forces exploit their considerable capacity to launch long-range missile and drone attacks throughout Ukrainian territory. There is no sign of a let-up. Mr. President, while the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights is still verifying numbers, preliminary data indicate that civilian casualties in May exceeded those recorded in April. Since the start of the Russian Federation's full-scale invasion, OHCHR has verified that 15,850 civilians, including 791 children, have been killed in Ukraine. 44,809 more, including 2,752 children, have been injured. The actual figures are likely significantly higher. The United Nations strongly condemns all attacks on civilians and civilian infrastructure wherever they occur. Such attacks are prohibited under international law and must stop immediately. Mr. President, the United Nations has repeatedly underscored the imperative of safeguarding Ukraine's nuclear facilities. As the conflict intensifies, the risks remain grave. On 4 June, the International Atomic Energy Agency was informed that the Zaporizhia thermal power plant, which supplies electricity to the Zaporizhia nuclear power plant, came under heavy attack. The incident has raised serious concerns regarding the plant's sole remaining power line, which in recent weeks has been disconnected several times. For now, the power line is still connected, but remains vulnerable. On 5 June, a 6 local ceasefire took effect near the plant to enable necessary access for maintenance and repairs at the site. The IAEA continues efforts to safeguard, to safe and to secure operation of the plant. All military activity in the vicinity of the plant must cease. As we have noted before, any extended loss of power could significantly increase the risk of a nuclear accident. Mr. President, we welcome the most recent exchange of prisoners of war between Ukraine and the Russian Federation on 5 June, involving 185 prisoners from each side, including 1 Ukrainian civilian. We commend the efforts of the United Arab Emirates in facilitating this exchange and encourage further measures of this nature. We also urge further steps toward the immediate return of all deported and forcibly transferred Ukrainian children. Such efforts must be prioritized and pursued in the best interest of the child and the preservation of family unity, wherever possible. And finally, Mr. President, when addressing this Council on 28 May, the Secretary General warned about the war entering a new, dangerous phase. He made an urgent appeal for immediate de-escalation. We are now in that dangerous phase, and further escalation looms. The parties must return to the path of diplomacy. It is not too late to re-engage in dialogue and negotiations in good faith. The long-term security and stability of Europe depend on concerted and inclusive diplomatic efforts to end this war. As a matter of priority, I reiterate the Secretary General's call for an immediate, full, and unconditional ceasefire. Such a ceasefire would save lives, alleviate suffering, and create the space necessary for diplomatic efforts toward a just, lasting, and comprehensive peace. As we have stressed before, the peace must be consistent with the Charter of the United Nations, international law, and relevant UN resolutions. We remain committed to supporting all efforts to this important objective. Thank you, Mr. President.